All right, guys. So Scott and I were having a conversation about safety after the tragedy that we heard about with Dane Purcell, and we're, I guess, we're kind of going on imperfect information, but um, the information that we have is that Dane was doing some target shooting at like a club or something like that, and he was not very high off the ground. I believe he was only about 6 feet off the ground. He was on a tether, and he called out for help. Um, there was some type of an emergency where he could not get down, and he was conscious long enough until somebody got to him. But I guess he just right about that point, he must have been struggling for a while and went unconscious. And he, for whatever reason, he was not able to get himself to the ground. So we don't know if he was just had like a stick and climbed up on a stick, and he was on his tether, if he was trying to single stick climb, or what. Um, but we're kind of speculating that it sounds to us like if he got up and he couldn't get back down, he probably
on a short
somehow,
on a short tether.
on a short tether, he probably lost his stick and lost his ability to get down. So if he's only 6 feet off the ground, he's got a 6 foot tether, but he's up off the ground, he's stuck there.
Yeah,
And
it would make sense, like if he had a stick with one or two step aider or something like that, and either he went off, his foot came, didn't make contact with the tree, and he slid off sideways.
right, we've seen that happen.
And we've seen that happen before. Um, yeah, or like I said, maybe for some unforeseen reason, the stick kicked out on him or something like that. That could have happened as well too. Like we've seen that happen as
Yeah,
well. We've experienced that ourselves. Um, like I said, we don't exactly 100% know. We wish we had that information. We're just kind of going on.
kind of speculating a little
From
bit.
what we do know is that he was on a short tether, 6 feet off the ground, and couldn't reach the ground.
Could get down. And
So thinking that once he got himself into that situation, he probably tried as hard as he could to get himself back to the stick, maybe. Um, Obviously he couldn't come down any further. He probably hit the knot at the end of the tether. I believe he's 5'5", 5'6", or something
a
like
big
that.
guy.
So if he was 6 feet up off the ground, yeah, right. He would have got there to that point. After a while, all right, you're going to panic.
Right.
Panic sets in. Now you're like, oh my God, now I can't get down. I'm
Right.
stuck here. Which I'm sure is probably when he started crying out for help. And by the time this guy got to him,
It was too late.
unfortunately, it was too late. The guy said he was upright when he first got to him, and then he became inverted, which I'm sure probably after sheer exhaustion, after fighting for that long, trying to get himself down, get himself somewhat stabilized, he just became, you know, completely exhausted and
And went unconscious.
went unconscious
Yeah.
and flipped over backwards, and that's when he became inverted.
And listen, you could be in a tree stand in a safety harness, and I've heard of stories with that where guys would, something would happen, they fall into their safety harness,
Mm-hmm.
they don't go to the ground, but now you're stuck up in the tree.
Right, right, and that's compression, suspension trauma.
So my question to you is, you've been climbing trees for 35 years, and you've seen um, what kind of incidents have you seen in trees where you had to self-rescue or get out quick?
Um, a number of things, from guys being attacked by bees, including myself, animals in a tree. Sometimes we come in contact with raccoons and stuff like that, and had to get out of there real quick. But there's a number of things. I mean, just not feeling right. I know guys who've cut themselves severely with pole saw blades, chainsaws, 70 feet in the air, no doubt, no less either, and then had to, thank God were able to self-rescue, come down on their rope, because being up there that whole time waiting for emergency personnel to get to them, which could have been anywhere from a half hour to an hour, they would have bled out. Like I said, just if you're not feeling it, all of a sudden, something happens to you up there. You get shortness of breath, you get, dizzy, whatever. It can be a number of different things. Sick to your stomach, but you have have the ability to self-rescue if you climb on a rope, whether it be DRT, SRT, or even one stick. Um, Even if you become inverted, if you're upside down, you can still, like I said, we always preach that fact that you never want that knot out of your reach. You always want it in reach. So even if you were to go on inverted, you still should, reach up. You should be able to grab that knot, that hitch, loosen it, or if it's a gree mechanical gree, you should be able to, or a mad rock, you should be able to hit that braking arm and lower yourself down.
Yeah.
And even the guys who one stick too, even if some guys, they one stick either using a munter hitch on a carabiner or a figure eight belay device, you have that ability to self-rescue, to get yourself out of a dangerous situation.
Yeah, I think one of the things we were talking about this before. Those of us that are one stick climbing, DRT, SRT, a lot of guys are JRB climbing too.
Mm-hmm.
All of us should be able to self rescue on the rope because you've got
Right.
a line that goes down to the ground.
Right, exactly.
But if you're just stick climbing, I could see you getting into this scenario. You could potentially get in this scenario, and it's something to maybe think about.
Mm-hmm.
Where like you were saying before, maybe carry some, even if you want to just get some 8mm or something like that in
and this is
a carabiner and do a munter's hitch.
Right. This is in no way an attack on stick guys. Just because we rope climb. This is about being safe.
Yeah.
And anything could happen to any one of us. As rope guys, as stick guys, as even guys who use climbers, ladder stands. Anytime you're going off the ground, you're going vertical to whatever, 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, you should have some form of a safe, some form of a rope apparatus with you that can get you safely back to the ground. So if, God forbid, anything happens to you up there, I mean, listen, if something happens seriously where you go unconscious, and it doesn't matter what you're doing.
Somebody's going to need to rescue you.
Right, but like I said, if cutting yourself, becoming seriously ill, insects, animals, anything like that. And I've come into contact with plenty of raccoons climbing trees.
I had a friend of mine that had a cardiac event while he was up in his tree.
Right.
I think he had some type of like a fibrillation or something, like it just all of a sudden his heart started beating erratically, and he knew something. He couldn't catch his breath.
Right.
And he basically had to crawl himself out of the woods. But I think he was on his way to his spot. He wasn't in the tree when it happened.
Right.
So you can imagine if you're in a tree and that happens, you might need to get down as quickly as possible.
Oh, yeah.
And
sure. No, being 10, 20, 30 feet off the ground and having an episode like that, where you're losing, your shortness of breath or anything like that, you start to panic.
Yeah.
So the last place you want to be is up that tree. You want to get to the ground as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And like I said, just these rope climbing methods. This is why Joe and I preach this stuff so much. The safety aspect of it, and now, of course, which has come to light in these last few weeks, is now the ability to self-rescue.
Yeah. Something we really didn't give a lot of thought to.
We didn't give a lot of thought to it. No, but
when
something like this happens,
it
really hits home. Right. Exactly. And listen, his wife, she's been incredibly strong and supportive over this whole thing, giving us as much information as we possibly can get, to understand what happened to Dane. The one thing, and I have seen some guys make comments on it, where I guess Jackie was telling that make sure everybody carries a knife with them. Now, in her husband's scenario, absolutely, man, that would have been the way to go. Just you're 6 feet off the ground, really. Okay, yeah, sure, you can even break your back at a fall like that, but being forced of, in his scenario, cutting the rope would have been the lesser of two evils for sure. Being 18, 20, 25 feet in a tree, no, I don't know if that's,
it's probably not your best option.
That's a hell of a gamble.
Right.
I hope none of us ever have to be forced with that one day.
Yeah.
But like I said, if you are on a rope, even if you don't do what we do, our rope climbing methods, if you carry 30 or 40 feet of rope with you, where you can girth hitch that tree, all right, and you don't even have to have a gree, you don't have to have a mad rock, all right. All you'd have to do is we all have carabiners. We have carabiners on our bridges. All you have to do is make a munter's hitch, which is very simple. Do a munter's hitch, and you can self-belay yourself to the ground safely.
Yeah, have it way down.
Or even if you carry a figure eight,
Yep.
Something like that. Something that's really small could go in your pack, could go in a side pocket.
You know what?
Like that.
A lot of guys don't really think about it, but it's not a bad idea to have a small little first aid kit, and you keep that in your first aid kit. You know what I mean? You have something there.
Yeah.
I've seen plenty of guys cut themselves on their broad heads or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
something like that. So it's something to think about.
Right. Yeah. I put it out there in a post the other day where I was, just kind of saying how everybody should carry some form of rope with them to be able to self rescue themselves. Like I said, it may seem overkill to you, but like I said,
Until you need it.
accidents don't come with a warning sign.
Yeah.
They don't ever give you that warning, like this is going to happen to you in the next 2 minutes, 2 seconds. Shit happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
the other thing you were talking,
we always want to be prepared.
The other thing you were talking about, a good idea too, is the loop runners.
Yeah, the loop runners, even the loop runners. I mean, listen, like, I can only speculate, but that's another necessity, I think, that people should have. They're very cheap. You can buy them in all different lengths. And it's just something that if, for instance, you were to come off your platform, even tree stand guys, climbing tree stand guys, it's just something where you could girth hitch the tree, and it affords you a handle to grab, or a foothold,
something to step into,
something to get your weight up off your harness where you can readjust yourself, maybe get back to your platform. And then, like I said, I would like to see everybody even have, even the tree stand guys, have some sort of rope, where they could get themselves to the ground. There's 8mm ropes out there today that a lot of guys are going towards. We now have the 9.5mm ropes.
Yeah.
I mean, they're very lightweight. You don't even know you have them. And 40 feet of that in one of your side pouches in your bags.
Or even, a lot of these guys,
know it's there.
A lot of these guys aren't hunting, more than 20 feet off the ground. Even if you had 25 feet or something, just to get you,
Yeah.
But it's just something to think about. We were talking about it, and if anybody's got more information on what happened, have more details, let us know. We're just trying to.
Yeah, I would definitely like to know the exact equipment that was on the tree, at the time of his demise. We've had friends of ours and stuff like that. We've seen it happen right before our eyes, man. Where going up on an aider and stuff like that. It happens,
quick,
in an instant, man, in a blink of an eye.
Yep.
And you get yourself into a sticky situation, man, especially when you're on a short tether. And if you can't get back to that stick, if you can't get that stick back upright and where it bites into and maybe you can climb back up the aider. I mean, these are all scenarios that we sure hope somebody was able to do to help themselves out in a bad situation like that. But the one thing, like I said, is just that rope is it's key, man, because it's from your elevated perch to the ground.
It's a tool.
It's a tool.
It's a tool that might be able to help you get back.
You may never ever use it to access your tree. All right, but that one time you may need it to get yourself out of a sticky situation. It's just something nice. It's nice to have.
It's nice to have. I've heard of guys that I have heard of quite a few guys that actually that they're into. They'll have like tree steps, screw-in tree steps. They'll climb their steps into their set, but they will rappel back out of their tree on a
figure eight belay.
On a figure eight belay. That's just how they do it,
right.
Because they like it to come back out of their tree. It's
easy.
It's easy. And if those guys were to get into a sticky situation, they've got a good way to get back down, and it's
And just you're coming back out. Usually it's at night. You're coming down in the dark. If if you either hunted all day or even if you went in at midday and hunted till dark, it's just easier coming down
Yep.
in the dark.
Yep, that's why they do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just wanted to, we have this little bit of a conversation and throw out a couple of ideas, and you know, it seems like Dane he really loved saddle hunting, and his wife knew that about him, and she tried to give as much information because she doesn't want to see anybody get hurt. And the nature of this business is, we all take a risk when we get off the ground, so I'm sure there's going to be other incidents that happen, and if we can kind of learn something from them, um, and hopefully avoid something like that again in the future.
Right.
That's what we're looking to do here. So,
Yeah, that's it.
So, all right, guys. Thanks for watching. If you guys have any input, please let us know, especially if you have any information. And be safe out there. Okay.
Yeah. I'm safe, guys.